Welcome to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, the daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball. You never know what special guest may stop on by any given day. Now here's the man of the hour, Mr. Steve Jones.
Get ready for heavy doses of Iowa.
Too much Hawkeye.
You may be wondering, for example, where Jason is. Some court appearance. What was it? No,
I believe what happened was we traded him for Iowa Hawkeyes games today. That's how it worked. That it was Iowa gets to come to town, Jason has to leave.
Look, I would have just taken cash and other considerations.
I'd have taken a vending machine, but it's okay.
Yeah, but they felt the vending machine was too much. All right, so he'll be back tomorrow. He's with his brother today. Brother needed him for something very important. All right, so Penn State, Iowa, men's game at 7, women's game at 9, both on BTN. Women's game at Carver Hawkeye tonight, Caitlin Clark and company. Then wrestling tomorrow night at 9 at Carver Hawkeye. So let's see how this all plays out over the next let's see, it's going to end up being, what, a 28-hour span?
Yeah, about 28 hours of just pure Hawkeye.
Yeah, all at once.
But hey, at least it's going to be some points put up rather than football.
Well, no, there will be points put up.
Yeah, there's going to be actual points on the board.
Iowa can score, both men and women. Doesn't matter. Both can score. How many they're going to score in wrestling against Penn State? I don't think they break 10.
Yeah. Well, I said points were already put up on the board. I never said it was going to be against Penn State.
I think Iowa's going to be in single digits tomorrow night. That's just me. Tonight, look, you have to be able to do enough defensively to slow Iowa down. They can score, although when they played Indiana, they scored 68 at Assembly Hall. They're a team that averages 84. Then that includes their non-conference games, too. And Sanford's a really good player. Cricky is good. Freeman, the big kid, is really good. The guy that runs it, Perkins, I've always liked. I've always liked Perkins. Just a good player. The bench is okay.
Yeah.
The bench is okay. I mean, Patrick McCaffrey now comes off the bench. He's been up and down shooting-wise. He had 10 the other day, but eight of them were at the free throw line. He was 8 for 8, which is equal to the number of attempts Northwestern had at Purdue. Now, I'd like to point out with Northwestern, just so everybody understands, I'm not saying Northwestern, the Purdue game, like they're going to get 20 free throws.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm saying. Because this season, Northwestern only has, I think, a dozen more free throw attempts than the opponent has free throw makes on the season against them. So, I mean,
it's not bad, not great.
No, that's not good. But that's how they played all year. 8 versus 46 is absurd.
Yeah.
But Iowa's a team that they can score, but you can score on them. I mean, that's the whole part. You can score on them. It's not as if Penn State has not been scoring. I mean, Penn State's coming off an 85 at Assembly Hall on Saturday. Shot the three, obviously, really well.
Jameel Brown, Zach Hicks, Ace Baldwin, just lighting it up.
Right. They all had, they played well, and they got a lot of open threes. Well, that's what you have to do. You have to be able to knock down the open shots. Because I'll ask Mike, as you know in the postgame, I'll ask Mike on nights where the three didn't go as well. I said, Mike, let's pick a number, of the 17 threes that you took, how many do you think were open looks? And, he'll say 14 of them. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's, okay. So I was like, well, their offense, hey, if you're getting open shots, your offense is doing a job. You have to knock the shot down. Well, the other day they scored 85 because they knocked the shots down.
And they scored 85, by the way, without their top scorer, Kanye Clary. Do we have any idea if he's playing tonight? We received word from Penn State in terms of news outlets.
They have not said.
Nothing on Kanye.
They have not said. They just said it's day-to-day.
Day-to-day. So we'll see on Kanye for now.
Sure.
But they've been playing well without him. They've played well without him. Ace has played really well. I mean, he's also played 3 straight games of nonstop basketball, 3 straight 40-minute games. So he's running and rolling, and the Penn State team is rolling. They won 2 games on the road. Now they have to avenge what happened against Minnesota. It's been a weird back-to-back home games where they beat Wisconsin, lost to Minnesota, and all of a sudden now you're here.
But what they've done is this. They've lost 2 at home. One of them to Northwestern. They lost by 4. And then, of course, the Minnesota game. Well, you have to get those back in this conference. Last week got them back for them. So now they're back to that. I mean, I know overall they're 5-6, so this will be game 12.
Yeah.
Now you have to protect your home floor. And by protecting your home floor, then maybe go out and steal another game on the road. But you got to protect your home court first. And they'll get Iowa tonight. Again, Freeman at 6'10" in the middle. He's a good-looking freshman big man. Cricky's a veteran. He can go inside, outside. Good player. Sandford's a good shooter. And Perkins, of course, I really like a lot. I've always liked Perkins. Even when he was, quote, backing up, I was like, no, that kid can play. Demi Dick and I were like, that guy can play. So that will be tonight. We're going to have the coaches show from 6:05 to 7, and then we'll just go right into the game at 7 o'clock this evening. So.
And then 8:45 p.m., moving on over to Pop Radio. You can listen to Joe Putnam, Justin Antwell. Well, they'll be in Carver Hawkeye for that game against Caitlin Clark, who is now 66 points away from Kelsey Plum's all-time scoring record. And I saw some people talking about it being like, oh, but Caitlin Clark had more seasons, had more whatever. She's played less games. She's played, as of this moment, 16 less games than Kelsey Plum did.
It doesn't matter. Okay, remember last year we were talking about Mike Davis's son. And they're, about maybe playing in the postseason or something like that because he was a few points shy of Pete Maravich.
Yeah.
Right? They said, what do you think about that? And I said, look, if you're the all-time leading scorer, you're the all-time leading scorer. You've scored more points than anybody else. That's it. We're done. Now, if you want to talk about how Maravich only played 3 seasons and he averaged 44 points a game and who's going to average 44, great. I mean, as somebody who saw Pete Maravich play, okay, I saw Pete Maravich play. Wow, what a show. There was no 3-point line when Pete Maravich played. No 3-point line. Who knows how many points he would have had. But the point total's the point total. Kelsey Plum's point total is the point total. Should Caitlin Clark go past her? Right? Should she go past her? She's the all-time leading scorer. More points than anybody else. Good.
Yeah.
Good enough. I don't put caveats on things. I don't, because I think it becomes too petty. Right? And I'm sick of this industry being so petty. Right? Brock Purdy's a game manager. Petty comment. It's petty. Right? Okay. Well, Kelsey Plum played. She's played. Hey, whoa, slow down. It doesn't matter. You have the most points. You have the most points.
Yeah.
Does it hurt the reputation of Casey Plum? No, because to be honest with you, it's actually brought her name back into the conversation after all these years. Right? Made you take a closer look at her career. That's great. That's fine. But it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right? We argue over the dumbest things in the name of getting clicks, in the name of getting. Just stop it. Just talk to people.
Can we also enjoy watching her play? She's doing things that no one else has done. It's just fun to watch. She's a fun basketball player to watch. Let's enjoy watching her play, please.
Hey, look, she's averaging a little bit better than 1.4 points a shot. That is
crazy.
Outstanding. Yeah. But again, 1.5 in the NBA is the gold standard.
Yeah.
Okay. So she's not Trae Young. But she also dishes off assists. She makes everybody on her team better. Now, I've talked about the fact that she's not really she's not really an elite defender. Okay?
Yeah.
It's just under the rules, she has to play defense. I got that. Okay, they do a good job. I mean, and Lisa Bluter should get some credit. They do a good job of hiding her, right, defensively. But so what? I mean, it doesn't matter. Okay, everywhere she goes, they sell out. Everywhere they go, like when they came in here last year, they won with the complete ease, right? The game was over. She's down on the floor. I'm watching her. Signing autographs. Taking pictures, right? Because she understands who she is. I'll never forget, I was telling my class this the other day, an opportunity to interview Michael Jordan one-on-one. And, I didn't wait that long. He comes out, jacket, tie, button down. Did maybe 10, 15 minutes, right? And somebody asked me, he says, what was he like? Natural question, right? I said, he knows exactly who he is. To her credit, and I've never met her, so I don't, I've only seen her, she seems to understand exactly who she is. She seems to understand what she means to the women's game, right? She seems to get all that. She doesn't seem like she blows off anything. It doesn't seem like she shirks the responsibility in any way, shape, or form that she is the face of the sport. Okay. Now, when she gets into the WNBA, are there better players? Well, they're older and they're going to be better than she is. Simple as that. Do I think she should be on the Olympic team? Yes. Because I think that if you're NBC, you're sitting there saying, how about putting her on the Olympic team? Even if it's in a Christian Laettner.
I was going to say, Laettner was on the dream team.
Well, that was mandated.
But even so, he was you remember that he was there.
Right. He was
May as well bring
Caitlin. It was mandated. In this case, I'd look at them and say, look, whether she decides to come back for her COVID year or not, I'd put her on the Olympic team because I think it would just be a good look for the U.S. To have her on there. And look, Penn State's going to go out and play them tonight. The question is, can Penn State score more points? Not just more than her. Can they? Now, she's probably going to do what she does. That's fine. Leilani Kapanis is probably the one that's going to get the primary responsibility. I mean, last year they tried to play zone against her. Penn State's zone was not very good last year when they played it. It's just a different personnel group. But then Penn State's got to take care of their own end. You can't get so absorbed and obsessed with a great player that you then let other people take over. If she's going to kill you, she's going to kill you. And that's just going to happen, is kind of how I view it. But you do whatever you can to control what she's doing. In other words, one of the keys to me is instead of 10 assists in the game, she gets 4 or 5. Well, what does that mean? That means the people she's passing to aren't scoring. Okay? And it is not a mountain to climb. It's not as if they haven't been beaten recently. They lost at Ohio State. Okay? And Ohio State put a ton of points up.
100 to be exact.
Yeah. I mean, and again, that goes back to my point about defense. Anytime there's a great player, like Penn State last year played Zach Edey out in West Lafayette. He's good. And as usual, he was good. But Mason Gillis had 29 points. Right? And it wasn't as if Penn State was doing a bad job on him. Mason Gillis had only scored 24 points to that point in the season. Okay? I mean, you don't know when somebody like that steps up, and he hit all those threes. Like the first one, you're like, okay, Dick and I are doing the game. We were courtside for that game. And the first one's like, okay, well, he can hit that shot. Then he hit the second one. You're like, all right. When he hit the third one, the two of us looked at each other and go, what the heck? Now, remember, when they played at the United Center in the Big Ten championship game, who took the last shot of the game to try and win the game?
Guessing Gillis.
Penn State. No, Penn State did. Cam Winter. But what happened on the inbounds play is it happened literally right in front of us. They put Edey up on. So, of course, now I can't see anything.
Yeah.
Now, I probably shouldn't have yelled, move. I'm trying to broadcast here. I mean, you can't kind of give me a look now. I'm just kidding. I didn't. Right. But he went They went to throw it in, and Edie actually deflected it on the way in, and it disrupted the whole play. Penn State was going to try to take a 3 to win the Big Ten championship. But in that game, they scored 60. Its finals, 67, 65, or some number like that, 69, 67. They didn't break 70 points, right? Edie had a good game, right? Other guys didn't, right? Braden Smith did not have a good game. Forrest Lawyer didn't have a good game, right? And again, that's why you do research on games. They're down the stretch, and Penn State's trying to foul. Lawyer's an 83, 84% free throw shooter. And I said on the broadcast, I said, Dick, got to foul Lawyer. I said, because he is only 4 of his last 12 at the free throw line. He dropped down to 83, 84. So that's why you don't just go. That's why you do research.
You look at what recently has been going on.
And he walked to the line, and guess what? He bricked him. Right. That's why you do it.
Yeah.
You're trying to tell the audience ahead of time what could happen, and that the door is open because of that. Or, like, they fouled the guy to 12 in a row. You're trying to then tell them, okay, don't get too confident here if you're a Penn State fan. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, you don't let her do anything. You make her work for everything that she gets. But make sure the other 4 work for anything they can get. Make sure they work hard. So they have to fight for their points. Right? Then at your end, just do your deal. You've been a good offensive team all year. McKenna Marisa, right, may not be a 3,000-point career scorer, but she's a 2,000-point career scorer. It's not like she doesn't know how to play.
I believe either her or Leilani Capitas had a 40-point game this year.
Right. Owosu, who did not play against Iowa for Penn State last year. Okay, Ashley is a big plus.
She's good. She's real good at basketball.
Really good player. Right? So that is an element that they didn't have when they played Iowa last year. So that is the second game tonight. We already talked about the first game. And then, of course, wrestling is tomorrow. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. I mean, wrestling's all about matchups. Look, every sport's about matchups. Right? It's easy to sit there and look at the numbers. And I look at numbers. Okay? I look at numbers.
Yeah.
All the time. Now, do I use fewer numbers in the broadcast now than I did 25 years ago? Yes. Do I use different numbers now than I did 25 years ago? Yes. Because Ken Pomeroy, has done a deep dive where I sit there and like, okay, now I've got a breakdown of what their 2-point percentage defense is, what their 2-point percentage offense is. How many points do they get from 3? What's their percentage of points from 2, from the free throw line? Things that we talk about in the broadcast that give you an indication of style of play.
Yeah. I mean, going into Assembly Hall, it was known like Indiana's going to try and kill you inside. They're not going to shoot the 3-ball well, but they're going to get the ball inside to Renault and to Ware and just beat you up violently. Yeah. And that's what they tried to do. Right. And what could they not do? Hit the 3.
Right. And you can break it down even further. We talked about the Illinois game, where in the Illinois game, the first half, they did not even attempt a 3, which in 2024 basketball, you're like, wow. Now, they hit a couple in the second half, but to be within a point without really a 3-point barrage at Illinois was pretty impressive. And then Illinois pulled away in the last minute and 10 seconds and won. Now, Indiana, to its credit, was down 18 the other night at Ohio State. They rallied and won the game by 3. But Iowa's the assignment tonight. First of 2 meetings. The other one will be at midnight at the end of the month. Might as well be. 9 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah, 9 p.m. game. The last Tuesday of February in Carver Hawkeye. You'll be there. It'll be a fun game.
What are we doing here?
What's up with the 9 p.m. games in Iowa? I don't get it, Steve. I don't get it.
This is a case where I think the Lady Lions are staying out on the road. I think they're going right to Wisconsin for Sunday's game. I don't think they're coming back and going back out again. I mean, I'd have to ask Joe that.
Yeah. But even so, that's a late game. That means hypothetically in Iowa, you're wrapping up at what, like 11 p.m. all things considered?
We're off the air at 11:30.
Yeah.
You got to remember, because then they've got to go through the deal, probably out of the building by midnight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's the airport's like 25, 26, 27 miles away.
Mm-hmm. It's a late game.
Cedar Rapids, and then everybody has to go through security. That's always enjoyable.
Through security, and then you go to Iowa or Wisconsin for your next game, which is on the 11th. So a couple days later, a few days later.
Lions tonight.
Yeah.
Now that's different. You see, if you're staying out on the road, you're not going tonight.
Mm-hmm. You're staying in a hotel.
Yeah.
Or taking time.
Right. In fact, I'm going to check with Joe and make sure that whether they're staying out there or not.
Mm-hmm.
Because Saturday night, Dick and I are going to be playing trivia, and
you need Joe Putnam for trivia.
We need to know where he is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, does it sound a little disingenuous? We're a team.
Mm-hmm.
We're a team.
Yeah.
Dick's won like 16 in a row or something.
Yeah. We also going on today in the basketball world is the NBA trade deadline. I mean, it's a very big day for that side of things. For anyone who loves Shams Charania and Adrian Wojnarowski, it is the day to follow them because it's just notification after notification after notification. We got the news yesterday. Monte Morris was being traded to the Timberwolves. Today, Buddy Hield is now a 76er, being traded for, I believe, Marcus Morris, Furkan Korkmaz, and 3 second-round picks.
Oh, 3 second-round picks.
3
really?
out of their.
Oh,
hey, but they kept their firsts, which is kind of big.
3 second-round picks.
Yeah.
Wow.
3 seconds.
That's really impressive.
The Utah Jazz traded Kelly Olynyk and Ochai Agbaji to the Raptors for.
By the way, they are staying out on the road.
Yes.
I texted.
That makes sense.
Okay, I'm just telling you.
And now you'll be able to get Joe for trivia, which is what matters.
I'll never forget doing the Orange Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
So Tony Hunt's the starter. First series he gets hurt. Now Austin Scott comes in. And Greg Brown, great guy from Learfield, is in the booth. He goes, he said, and Austin Scott, no Tony Hunt. He says, we're in a commercial break. He says, that's why you guys need a sideline reporter. I looked over, I go, really? Okay. I said, 1 second. Took my phone, texted. The bag says, high ankle sprain, out rest of the game. He goes, how do you know that? I said, I texted the doctor on the sideline. He goes, that's actually a pretty good system.
It's a really good system. And someone
this is 2005 season. He said, that's actually a pretty good system. I said, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Pretty strong system.
Right. Now, we're fortunate we have Brian Tripp now. So.
The awesome Tripp. And
that's great.
Someone who's making a trip to Oklahoma City is Gordon Hayward. Gordon Hayward for Davis Bertans and Trey Mann from the Hornets. You've got Daniel House going to the Pistons via the Knicks from the Sixers.
Lamar Stevens went to the Grizzlies.
Lamar Stevens to the Grizzlies for Xavier Tillman. Daniel Gafford to the Mavericks for Rashawn Holmes and draft compensation. And the big one that just dropped.
See, I think Lamar's going to play some with Memphis.
He probably, there were 13 players.
He's only played 19 games this season. I think he'll get some run. Memphis. Yeah.
Because they have a billion injuries. And the last one is the Knicks are acquiring or re-requiring Alec Burks from the Pistons for future second-round picks, 2 of them, and Quentin Grimes.
Oh, really?
Grimes is going to the Pistons. He'll get to play, which is big because he's looked really good. And the Knicks get someone who can score in Alec Burks. But getting rid of Grimes for Burks feels like a move. Because Grimes has a future.
All of these moves are moves.
None of them are the big moves. We're still waiting on news on DeJounte Murray, which was rumored last night all of a sudden out of nowhere. Was like the Pelicans tried getting him, but no deals materialized in the Pelicans and Hawks. So nothing for DeJounte Murray. And we've got nothing else on anyone else really right now. It's kind of just a waiting game for other players to be like, I want out.
The one team that really improved itself is the Celtics getting Tillman from Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
Because they needed a body to rebound, and that's what they got.
And there we go. The Knicks are trading for Bojan Bogdanovic, and the Pistons are getting Malachi Flynn and everyone's favorite Frenchman from New York, Evan Fournier. He's finally moving out. going to Detroit in this trade. So it's Grimes, 2 future seconds, Fournier and Flynn for Bogdanovich and Burks. That makes more sense now, getting rid of Grimes in a deal, because Grimes in that trade makes just no sense. But now the Knicks get an extra help, and I get to smile knowing that we're going to make a run to the NBA Finals now because we're the best team in the NBA. And I'm definitely not wrong at all. Hey, I will not hear anything else. We're still winning games with our entire starting lineup injured, and Jalen Brunson might be the greatest player to ever live, and Mitchell Robinson's coming back soon, and Julius Randle's coming back soon, and OG Anunoby's coming back soon. It's a great time to be alive. I can see the smile on your face. You seem so happy, so excited. You know what excites me though, Steve? I want to ask you about the hockey, the penalties. So the fact that players get sin binned, quote unquote, for 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. They go into the box for a penalty, for a power play, whatever.
2 minutes. Yeah.
It now looks like soccer is bringing this rule into play. There is going to be a brand new edition of a blue card.
They do this in lacrosse.
Yeah,
in lacrosse will get 30-second, 60-second penalty.
Well, the blue card is going to be for 10 minutes. Good. For cynical play, or for shouting at the ref like, what the heck? Because recently this season, for dissent, there has been yellow cards being shown left, right, and center, and players getting sent off for two in a minute. Now it's going to be, you get 10 minutes out. Go sit. Which I think is actually kind of a smart rule, because it doesn't get rid of the player for the game. It doesn't suspend him for one more as well.
What about flopping?
That's going to get you cynical play. Good. It's going to get you a blue.
Should. It's embarrassing.
Mm-hmm.
I see more people on the ground than a soccer game. I'm like, from what? Just get up. Get up.
Yeah, but hey, you know what matters? I don't know if you and Jason talked about it at all, but July 4th, I will be in Philadelphia in 2026 because America is going to play there. And what might be the perfect matchup, if it's possible. I don't want to face them if I'm the U.S., but just stay with me for a second here. Philadelphia, July 4th, 2026, the World Cup in Philadelphia, where the Declaration of Independence, I believe, was signed, if I'm not mistaken.
So far, so good.
It's Independence Day. The U.S. at home at Lincoln Financial, Philadelphia fans, rowdy. They're taking on England.
Now, is this a preliminary round or
this would be round of 16?
That means you got to win to get there.
You got to win, but let's assume they get there. Let's assume this all happens.
We're a country of 330 million people.
Yes.
We can find 15 guys,
yes.
Right?
But just imagine that matchup happening. The storyline. England, U.S., on Independence Day in the city where the Declaration of Independence was written on the 4th of July.
I'm going to be in Williamsport doing baseball that day.
I will be in Philadelphia watching the U.S. beat England.
I'll be watching America's pastime.
I'll be watching America beat its pastime. Come on, tell me that's not a story written for movie.
One of the great wins in the history of the World Cup was the United States beating England in 1950, 1-0. Mm-hmm. Assisting on the goal, Walter Barr, who for many, many years was Penn State's head soccer coach, and his sons Matt and Chris kicked in the NFL. So yes, I do know some soccer history.
You do know some soccer history.
Yes.
Look at that. I'm proud of you. It's not just me here.
You are shocked.
I am. And I want to now go back to more basketball for a quick second. A little tangent there. Geno Auriemma, UConn coach, talked about him a bunch. Hit 1,200 career victories. He is now 6 behind Tara Vanderveer and 2 behind Coach K. Mm-hmm. Will these records ever be touched, do we think, by coaches moving forward?
Let's start with Geno. Geno's won all 1,200 games at UConn. Mm-hmm. Some of the wins that Mike got happened to be at Army, and some of the wins that Tara Vanderveer got were at Idaho.
Mm-hmm.
All 1,200 of his wins are at UConn. He's a Philadelphia guy.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one time I had a long conversation with him. It turned out it was a year Penn State hosted the opening 2 rounds of the NCAAs, but Penn State wasn't in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were here, and we're in the back gym, and where they had the press conference and the press area set up. And I probably talked to him for like 15, 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Highly intelligent, funny, great sense of humor, sense of history, loves wine. Right? And it was just a fun conversation because Joe D'Ambrosio, at the time he was doing UConn women's basketball. Joe D doesn't do either one anymore. That's a radio station thing. That's not a Joe D thing. And Joe and I have talked a lot over the years. And that's what opened the door for me to talk to Geno.
Mm-hmm.
Geno Auriemma, when he began his career in 1985 at UConn, they'd only had one winning season to that point. They had a doubleheader against Hartford. And I'm trying to think if it was in the Civic Center. I think it was in the Civic Center.
It was Civic Center.
And they drew 50 fans. Mm-hmm. You know, and now as the game went, more and more people came in.
In Hartford.
But it started out with 50 fans in the Civic Center.
Against Central Connecticut State, to be exact.
It was Central? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then the men's team was going to play in the next game. Now, at this point, the men's team had not won a national title either. Remember, the women's team in Connecticut won first. That endeared them forever in a state that had won nothing.
UConn women was the sports team.
But they won first, and that was important. The order with which it happened is important in this story. So now he goes from 50 fans in a game in 1985, which he obviously has never forgot, to over 14,000 and win number 1,200. In between 11 national titles. First one, I think, was in 95 when Rebecca Lobo and that group and Jen Rosati won in 95 up in Minneapolis.
That sounds right.
And then after that, the men's team didn't win their title till 99, 4 years later. But again, because the women's team won first, they endeared themselves forever. I mean, the situation they're in the Big East is interesting because, you know, they went to the American, which was not good. But in the process of doing that, they had a TV contract with Connecticut Public Television, which paid them like $1 million a year. Well, when they went and changed conferences, they weren't allowed to have it. You go, oh, we have our own conference. Oh, yeah, lucky us. Great, you know, get a nice substandard deal. But he built it from nothing.
You were correct, by the way. 95 was the championship year, the first one.
You act like I know nothing. So now he goes through on this long journey that gets him to this point where you can tell he appreciates everything he's had, everything he's done, all the fights that he had to probably fight, especially in the early years, to get people to come out and see my team and the whole deal. Because remember, you know, 85 to 95 is not a couple of years. Okay? All those games with Tennessee, and before you got South Carolina, LSU, and Caitlin Clark, like the must-see game was UConn against Tennessee. Pat Summitt, Geno Auriemma, and the back and forth that went there. He's recruited great players. He has had a staff that has stayed stable. The fact that Chris Daly is still his assistant after all these years, where you would think at some point, like somebody would come after her with a boatload of money and say, hey, and she stayed. So it tells you about an organization that from the outside looking in, and again, I only talked to him 15, 20 minutes, okay? But you could tell what loyalty means. Right? And organizations that are successful that also have as a cornerstone of it loyalty. stand the test of time.
Mm-hmm.
And his players over the years, especially, I mean, look, they're star players, whatever. Have you ever heard a UConn player mouth off about how bad the situation was at UConn?
Nope.
No, you have not. Now, doesn't mean all of them played.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it doesn't mean all of them played along the way. I remember when they won their first title, Hollidaysburg, from Hollidaysburg, Pam Weber was on that team. She started at guard.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk about the occasionally overused word of culture. But when you have a culture that sustains itself, not just year after year, but decade after decade, that tells you something. Are there days that the players did not like him? Of course there were.
Mm-hmm.
Now, after being there, are there days where they don't like him? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And that's one thing you'll notice with the great coaches that stand the test of time, that when players are there, you'll have some of them, what the hell? And then when they leave, they look around and go, now I know what he or she was talking about. All that long list of Penn State football players that played for Joe, now they know what he was talking about. Okay? The long list of players that played for James. Now there are days that they were mad at him, whatever, and now they know what he's talking about. Same thing with Geno. Same thing with Mike Krzyzewski. Same thing with Roy Williams. The same thing with Jay Wright. There may have been days that they were furious at him. I don't get why we're doing this. I don't understand why he's like, what do you mean? Why do I mean I got to be 10 minutes early? What the heck? And then they get to later on in life as husbands, fathers, or in this case, wives, mothers, whatever, and all those lessons taught every single day. Michael Robinson's birthday is this week. Told me a great story. He goes to the Seattle Seahawks. He'd been with the 49ers. Now he goes to the Seahawks. Pete Carroll's the coach. Pete Carroll calls a 4 o'clock meeting in the afternoon. Well, at Penn State, with Joe, 4 o'clock meant 3:45. So he walks in at 3:45. There's only one other player sitting in the room. Jordan Hill at Penn State, whose birthday, by the way, is today. The only 2 players in the room that were 15 minutes early were the 2 Penn State players. Prepared, on time, ready to go. Now, that was drummed into them here over and over. And you know darn well, wouldn't it be 3:45 in the afternoon? 3:45 in the afternoon. Right. I'll never forget a player. Garrett Sickles would talk about this. Penn State had a bye week before they played Ohio State in 2016. James had a meeting called for, I think it was probably him, it would have been 3:30 or something like that on Sunday afternoon, because they had a bye week before. And Sickles was, I think, out in California. Was late getting back. Well, he didn't play the first half of the game against Ohio State. Okay. Well, you think in life now he's not early all the time? Has all his bases covered? Garrett's a great guy. I mean, Garrett's a great guy. James would tell you he's a great guy. But again, there was a rule in place. Just like in the Rose Bowl that year, Syed Blacknall and Manny Bowen did not play. This is not a guy who said, well, Ohio State's one of the biggest games of my career. Maybe we ought to bend it. Nope. Okay. Rose Bowl's one of the biggest games of my career. Nope. Right? Because he knew that long term they'd be better off for it. Right? He knew they'd be better off for it long term, having that kind of discipline instilled in them. Geno Auriemma very much like that. He has his rules. He has his moments. He gets mad like anybody else. But he is revered by his former players.
Mm-hmm.
You never hear a negative word about him from his former players. And not all of them won all the time. Okay? Not all of them won. Most of them did.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But guess what? They understand what he was talking about. Right? They get it.
Mm-hmm.
Because some days he was always open and honest with them, and some days it was good, and some days it wasn't great, but guess what? He had a higher idea in mind. He knew how to push and when not to push.
Mm-hmm.
Right, 1,200 wins, all at the same school. See, all at the same school. UConn gave him his opportunity. He never left. Well, you know what's interesting about that? Remember I was talking about the loyalty part of it?
Mm.
He stayed.
Mm-hmm.
He could have left.
I want you to guess, how many tournament wins do you think he has in his 39 years at UConn?
39-year tournament wins.
And to give you an idea,
I will say that he has.
Yeah.
I'm going to say 96.
96. That would be second if he was in the men's tournament because Coach K has 101. He has 133.
133.
133 NCAA tournament wins.
It's incredible.
It's absurd.
Yeah. Now, have there been certain elements that have been built in? Okay.
Mm.
Well, number one, he has the better team.
Yeah, having Maya Moore, Brianna Stewart, like Diana Taurasi.
Look, he recruited and coached them. Look, you can take really good talent and not win.
Mm-hmm.
You can have great talent and not win. Remember the old story about Guy Lewis at Houston? All he do is some days is just roll the ball out, and of course he got criticized for that. No, you can screw up a team.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can overcoach them, things like that. All right. He understands the balance. Geno does. And you think about, like, even the years they didn't win where they made long runs into the Final Four and so forth. You know, he knows how to win the big games.
Mm-hmm.
He knows how to get it. Now, the built-in advantage is how many times have they played tournament games in stores, right? Which right now they're in a position to do again.
Mm-hmm. And that's a madhouse. Gamble is a crazy place.
Which then brings you to the next part. How many times have they had the regional in Bridgeport?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so like they've had the advantage because of how great they are and how well attended they are.
They are like,
because look, the women's tournament is trying to get eyeballs. I got that. I mean, even to this point, I mean, people forget that in 1980, the men's tournament was still playing at home sites.
Mm-hmm.
Then finally, in the early 80s, it changed to like neutral. The women's game is not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if they're going to get there.
Yeah, I know I attended. There was a few games Syracuse played in when I was there in school. And Syracuse, they have the tournament in the Carrier Dome. Mm-hmm. And it was like, well, Syracuse is a home court advantage because it's literally in their house.
Right. You know, it's your place. And the opposition knows they're in your place.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's not as if the opposition doesn't come in and go, well, it's a neutral floor, no problem, let's go play.
Mm-hmm.
No. No.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, you know, like I said, built-in advantages, but you earned your built-in advantage.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because of the way the women's game is at this point, and there's still, I mean, when I was looking at brackets last week for the women's team, Lady Lions, the two places they might be sent as a 7th seed were going to be Kansas State or UConn.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess who you'd play in the second round?
UConn.
Kansas State or UConn on their home floor. I mean, it's like, you know, because that's just the way it is in 2024 with the women's game. And it's probably going to stay like that for a long time. Because it's going to be interesting to see when Caitlin Clark moves out what does happen here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, the women's game's in the best spot it's been in ever, but there's still some fragility to it.
Yeah. They've had a lot of names recently. Of course, UConn had Paige Beckers, who has been amazing, but she's had a lot of injury problems. Yeah. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese recently with LSU. Like, you've had these big
She's
names.
been up and down. See, it's like, and that's LSU's not quite, South Carolina's been really good,
Camila Cardoso, former Syracuse player, by the way. She's just so good. She's so good. Now she's at the Olympics with Brazil, I believe, or training with Brazil. Just, it's so much fun. And he's in Connecticut. Like, you grew up in Connecticut. I grew up in Connecticut. We're both Connecticut kids. For me, that was the team to watch, was UConn women's basketball. It was them, and then we got real good teams in my childhood with Kemba Walker and Shabazz Napier for the men's basketball side, but it was women's basketball through and through. Like, they were...
Shabazz Napier could play well starving like he did.
Yeah. Hey, he can make free throws. It's all that mattered. And it was just... When they were on, you watched.
Training table from every day. And he acted as if they were having ramen noodles.
Oh, boy.
Remember that?
I do.
Okay. That was okay. I was down at that Final Four. I'm like, what are you talking about? And everybody, like, hook, line, and sinker. Do you know how it works? Have you ever heard of snack? Huh? You want to know what's at snack? You'd love it. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you put out stuff like that, and people, okay, you got to be able to independently think. That doesn't happen. We do too much group think. We don't ask the right questions. Like, whoa, wait a minute. You started training camp on September 27th. Which night did you have ramen noodles here? We're in early April. Which night did that happen? Right?
Yeah.
Now, maybe during the summer when there's no training table, things like that. Okay, I got it. I see what you're talking about. But for the last 6 months or 7 months, it's like, what was on your, you ask them straight up. Yesterday, how many meals did you have, and was one of them snack, and what was served at snack? Did anybody ask that question? No.
Good question. Good idea.
No, but again, we don't ask the right questions. Okay? It's a hook, line, and sinker. It's a narrative. It's like, okay, most narratives are garbage because you don't ask the right questions.
But what the question in terms of this, really the thought that goes into this is that UConn women's team was the team. They were the ones who we watched, and I grew up watching and was like, this is sports. There's no pro sports team in Connecticut. We had the New Britain Rockcats, who were the AA team for the Twins. Well, remember, that was the best we had. We had the Whalers.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, this is the state of Connecticut sports before UConn won. The Whalers won the opening round in the Stanley Cup playoffs against Quebec. They then took the Montreal Canadiens in the next round to the seventh and deciding game. And Claude Lemieux. Claude Lemieux scored the game winner in overtime in Game 7 and eliminated the Whalers. The city of Hartford had a victory parade for the Whalers. Now, this was 9 years before UConn won. They had a victory parade for the Whalers for beating Quebec in round 1 and losing the seventh and deciding game to the then mighty Montreal Canadiens on Claude Lemieux's overtime goal in Montreal. And they had a victory parade because it is a state that had not won anything ever.
Nothing.
I mean, Yale won a couple of Ivy League titles when they had Calvin Hill and Brian Dowling and Bob Weinauer. There was the famous Harvard beats Yale 29-29 game, whatever. But that's the state of Connecticut sports at that point. Okay, that was the state of Connecticut sports. And then UConn won the whole thing in women's basketball.
Oh, my God.
That allowed the state to embrace a winner. And because they won first, it is carried to this day as to how much people love them.
I vividly remember, I believe it was it 09? I want to say it was the 09 team. I think 09, we got the next Monday off school because that was when the victory parade was going to happen. I believe it was the Monday.
Right.
It was whenever the parade was going on, we had the day off of school, and we were an hour from stores. We had the day off, and I'd say out of my grade of 100 kids, 45 made it up to UConn to go watch the parade, wherever it was.
It was probably in Hartford.
Went up the half hour, 35 minutes to Hartford to go watch the parade. Like, it was the team. And he is the driving force in that. And we always talk about the brands in college football. There are these brands. UConn is the brand in women's basketball.
No question.
Like, they are and always will be the brand.
It's interesting because the UConn men have won 5 national titles. They've actually won more national titles than anybody else since 1999.
Yeah.
Like Duke, no, they don't have 5. Kentucky has 1. Okay, Duke has, 3 since 99?
Something like that.
3.
Yeah, that sounds right.
3 since 99. All right, Kentucky has 1. All right, wow, Indiana has none. They got 5.
Syracuse has 1.
There's 1, but they got 5. And you know, the funny thing is, because of, and Geno Auriemma, by the way, loves men's basketball. Has nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
But sometimes you'd never know that they've won 5. Now, they've done it with 3 different coaches. Jim
Calhoun,
won
Kevin
3.
Kevin Ollie.
Kevin Ollie won 1 in 14, and last year Dan Hurley. And right now, I believe they're ranked number 1 right now.
Yeah, they're number 1, number 2. They always flip with Purdue at the moment because Donovan Klingen's great. They've got a great team.
But I mean, that's the state of it. But this is about Geno and what he's accomplished. He has taken it from the unnoticed, under the radar days, and he's a big reason why the Caitlin Clarks of the world are able to thrive today. Because he's the one that got Rebecca Lobo, Jen Rosati, Nikisha Sales, Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird, Brianna Stewart. You go through the long list of great players that have all won titles at UConn and got eyeballs because people do want to see dynastic teams, and you know they've been a dynasty, right? Well, because of what he's done, of laying a foundation and then some, people now will want to watch Caitlin Clark play. If Caitlin Clark were playing, with all due respect, back in the 80s, everybody, oh, yeah, it's really great because I did a Cheryl Miller game, broadcast a Cheryl Miller game. Okay? She was a great player, really great. And everybody knew who she was. She had a 100-point game in high school, right? You know, she was more famous than her brother Reggie at that point. Okay? But it still didn't move the needle nationally like it does today. And that's because of everything that Geno accomplished, and he'll tell you, along with Pat Summit, and now with Don Staley, and now, okay? But now you've got 9 million people watching the championship game because of all those days that he coached at UConn, made them relevant, made them great, kept them great, and brought more eyeballs to TV sets to the sport of women's basketball than ever. That has allowed along the way the Cheryl Swoops, the Lisa Leslies, the Candace Parkers, and everybody else to thrive in the sport along with his UConn players. And now you have a championship game between LSU and Iowa that draws 9 million. And he's a big reason why, because you can never forget your foundational people that kept it going, made it better, and that's why I talk so much history, because I feel like there are too many people that, oh, well, the athletes today are just much better. You have no idea what they went through back then. You have no idea. I mean,
we wouldn't have the NBA we do today without Magic and Bird. We wouldn't.
Well, you don't have the NBA today without the days that George Mikan and those guys were going on buses to keep it alive. You don't have the NBA today unless you've got Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain going head-to-head, right, trying to keep the league alive. And then you get to the 70s, and then people start looking at it as the, quote, the drug league. They get challenged by the ABA. ABA, they have people barely hanging on. Like, you're foundational people that went through. They didn't have the trainers you have today. They don't have the travel they had today. Right? You're not where you are today because what if they failed?
Mm-hmm.
What if they failed? It's hard to fathom. But, like, women's basketball for a long time, Geno fought. Because I saw Renee Portland here fight. Now, Renee made a mistake. She should have played Geno. Geno kept asking to play him. Renee wouldn't play him. And he never forgot that. That's one thing about Geno. He doesn't forget. Geno does not forget.
Nope.
Okay? He remembers any slight along the way. But you know what? Part of that makes you stronger because it drives you a little bit. Like, oh, yeah. But to win 1,200, Tara Vanderveer, same thing with Stanford with the number of wins. Now, comparing them to Mike, look, they are, no offense, they are slightly different games. Mm-hmm. Okay?
Yeah.
All right? Okay? That's why I'm never crazy about, like, okay. Like, it's like saying I'm the all-time leading scorer in lacrosse. Like, well, no, women's lacrosse is a little bit different than men's lacrosse. Well, women's basketball is a little bit different than men's basketball. And let's just start with the basic one. And people hate when this is brought up, but the size of the ball. Mm-hmm. Well, the size of the ball is the right size for the women's game. Right? Easier to handle, the whole thing. All right, okay. Right? You're not dumping the ball down to the post and Karl Malone is there like this. Like, okay, who does that? So they're slightly different in that regard. Mm-hmm. Right? I didn't say dramatically different, but slightly different. Right? It's just a fact. It's not a put down. It's a fact. It's slightly different. That's why we say, well, she's won X amount of games and Mike's won 1202. I don't think Mike Krzyzewski cares. Mm-mm. But he's the all-time men's leader. She's the all-time women's leader. Mm-hmm. I never am crazy about, like, hey, I've scored more points. Right? Well, okay. I mean, yeah, I guess. Like, talking about, Clark and Plum. Okay, that's comparable. Clark to Maravich, is it comparable in terms of most points by a human in college? No. I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But in terms of, okay, different ball, yeah, no three-point line, yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you start going through all these things, but you either have the most or you don't. But I think there are separate records, right? Only because there are enough slight differences. I'll never forget a men's game here at Penn State, very quickly. It was in Rec Hall. And the ball went out of bounds. And so somebody grabbed a ball off a rack and threw the ball into Pete Lisicki. And Lisicki looked at the official, I can't throw this in. So, well, the official's like, what are you talking about? He says, you got 5 seconds to throw it. He said, but this isn't the right ball. So what are you talking about? He said, it's a women's ball. The official went, oh, ooh. Because they could tell. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, they could tell. And it doesn't matter, okay? But because each one is correct for, okay, the sport they're playing. That's all that matters.
Yeah. And the sport you're playing tomorrow will involve Mr. Jason Lord.
Oh. Are we sure the jury's coming back with a favorable verdict?
We, as of this moment, reporting all states, it will be. So, but I'll be back on Monday. Because we'll have some fun things to talk about.
I want to tell you right now.
Oh,
his legal team, Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe, is just an absolutely terrific. I mean, they'll go to any length.
Yes. Get ready for 49ers chat tomorrow
Dewey,
here on
Cheatham,
Sports Talk with Steve Jones.
Thank you for listening to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a 7 Mountain Media production. Come back at 11 every weekday for analysis of the latest happening in the sports landscape. From college football to European soccer, Steve and Kyle cover it all